Hello. Yes. Yes, I love you too. Okay, we're going to say hello to these people. Hi there, welcome to the Nocturnal Space Workshop. I'm Trezh and this is Iris, and in this video I shall be going through how I've converted my an old metal Tyranid Zoanthrope into a Tyranid Neurothrope. I got so far with the conversion, but then I jumped onto a different project, you know, because I needed to get an army ready for a different game. But now I'm going back onto it, so basically I got it converted, the model's pretty much completed. That's the word I was looking for. Pretty much completed, and now I just need to paint it. So Editor Me in the future will put a picture of it up in 3, 2, 1 now. And so as you can see, I just need to paint the model now, which is what I'm about to do. I've also got some Hormagaunts, which I'm going to be painting up at the same time, and that's what the remainder of this video will be. But first of all, I'll show you how I actually converted the model in the first place. Okay, are we good to go? Are we good to go? Yeah, we're good to go. You okay, Iris? Yeah? Okay, so first of all I took one of my old metal Zoanthropes and I looked at some other miniatures that I thought might have some interesting pieces. So I looked at the Gene Stealers from the old Space Hulk games. They're kind of creepy poses that they're in, and then the Venomthrope, the old Venomthrope, that's got some, you know, bigger spires on the back piece, so I thought that might make it stand out from the other Zoanthropes, as well as an old warrior headpiece for the carapace, make that stand out a bit more. Here's a little mouthpiece from another one of the Gene Stealers from the Space Hulk game. I thought that might make it look like one of the, you know, the Pred aliens from the old Predator-verse Alien film. It just makes it, you know, makes it a little bit more interesting, make it, once again, stands out that little bit more from the other Zoanthropes. So the bicarbonate soda on there, not only does it help with the super glue to make it that extra adhesive, you know, gives it a bit more grip, but also bulks it out and acts as like a bit of a filler as well. So just filing that down a little bit so it gets, you know, gets into the shape that I want it to be in. So then I very, very carefully took one of the arms from one of those old Gene Stealers. I thought that had an interesting shape, like kind of like a witchy pose, like something from Evil Dead or something. Then very, very carefully, so as not to cut myself, I removed some of the excess plastic from between the fingers there. Then I simply replaced the finger that I'd accidentally cut off with a bit of super glue and just popped that back into place. I think that's going to look quite smart. For the other arms, I looked at these metal claws, scything talons from the old Broodlord model. I thought that could look kind of interesting, but I wasn't quite sure. So then I began preparing the Venomthrope, the Venomthrope, so it could, I mean, they really are the superior spires. So yeah, I started to prepare the model so I could take the spires off and put them onto the Zoanthrope. And there you go, that's in place. I think that's going to look really, really cool once it's all done. I just need to file it down a little bit more so I could fit that better into position. And once again, just using a bit of bicarbonate soda with the super glue. I mean, it's just so versatile. You fill the gaps and you can shape, you can build it up and bulk it out. It's just, yeah, it's amazing stuff. So this is a very cheap manicure set that I got from, I think it was like Temu or something like that. I thought that I could use it instead of a Dremel, and as you can see, it works. It wasn't very powerful, but you know, it managed to get through the resin well enough. And yeah, bit of bicarbonate soda again, but there we go. It fits into place. So here I'm just dry fitting now a few different arms and so on, trying to figure out what shapes work for the best. And at this point, really, it's just sort of trying to find a great silhouette, and so I settled on these eventually. I thought, yeah, carrying that piece as well makes it look like it's just come out of battle. You know, I like to think it's using that for some kind of like witchy spell, because you know it's a witchy psyker. I mean, it's not, but it is, but it's not. Anyway, a bit of activator on there as well. That makes the it makes it a set less granular, where the bicarbonate soda and the super glue is. Now here I am with the my makeshift Dremel from the manicure set, and as you can see, it stopped working. I don't know if it's something to do with the difference in voltage from, you know, where it came from over in you know, China or wherever it was. It's like a different voltage over there to over here, but I only had it on charge a couple of times and it just completely died. It's like the circuits just got fried, so I had to go back to doing things manually. And here I am with the crest from the head crest from the warriors. I want to put those on. That's just a bit of acetone. It's just literally just some cheap nail varnish remover there, and just a few bits in the jar there that I was stripping the metal from. And you just literally just wipe it on and the paint comes off with it. It's that simple. I really should have been using gloves here. I normally do use gloves, but I thought it's just a little piece, it'll be alright. But you know, use gloves, people. Always use protective equipment. So now it's down to the actual metal. I could put the other pieces into place. So I just glued on those, sorry, my stupid head in the way. Oh yeah, I glued my fingers together. Okay, so now I'm down to the bare metal. I can just glue those pieces into place. So just yeah, a bit of bicarbonate soda again and file it down manually, as I don't have my Dremel tool anymore. And then I was wondering about what else could I put on there just to give it a bit more shape, a bit more bulk, and increase its profile. And I want something on the back. The Neurothrope model does have like a big pointer thing on its back, and so I got this as like an old warrior model, and I really like the leg piece there where the sinew and stuff's exposed, or where it's supposed to be goo or something, I don't know what it is, but I thought, yeah, I want that on its back, that's going to be cool. So I just simply cut that down, got the piece that I want, and trimmed it down until I found I had a nice fit. Again, it's all about the profile, so that's what's important. So that's why I keep holding up against the model. It's just, how's it going to look as a shape on the tabletop? So again, just going through a couple of different pieces and trying to find some bits that I needed, or bits that I thought would make for a cool shape. And again, super glue, bicarbonate soda, clean it off, and it's all good to go. To glue the spires into place, when I had the Zoanthrope, I had trouble sticking that into place with lots of gaps. It wasn't a very clear fit, so I just put glued some green stuff in there directly, so then I could super glue the spires in there on top of that, and then just had to smooth it down a little bit, but that made a much more snugger fit. Speaking of green stuff, a little bit of Vaseline there, well, petroleum jelly, I should I say, or dinosaur grease as I like to call it. That's really good. Everybody always says that, keep your tools wet when you work with green stuff, but obviously petroleum jelly is the super tool when you're using green stuff. It's so smooth, it keeps it slick, and it just allows you to really sculpt in the shapes that you need there. So I'm just going around and I'm just filling in some gaps where, well, obviously I use the bicarbonate soda to bulk it out more, but then when I want a little bit more texture and something that's a bit more, a bit more of a design to it, like here I'm just putting in some shapes where it's supposed to be either the ribs or like some kind of weird alien breathing vents, I guess. I'm not quite sure what you want to call it, but it's just to give it some real texture, some more of an organic texture. And again, just keep going in for that petroleum jelly. But I wanted something on its back that was kind of like the pieces that you get from the actual sprue for the Tyranids, and I thought if it had some kind of like, this is supposed to be a massive psyker, so if it has some kind of like secondary brain on its back, so that's why I thought I'd just go about sculpting something. I mean, I'm not quite sure it looks like a brain as such, but probably less said about that the better. But I just carried on working it until I got a shape I was happy with. I didn't really quite nail the secondary brain look I was going for, but it looked kind of like the bits that you get from the sprue, so I was kind of happy with it. I'm just covering up the base here before I go ahead to paint, but I've also got some hormogots I want to paint at the same time. So to base them, what I use is coriander seeds, peppercorn and poppy seeds, and start off with some bicarbonate soda, and this is how I build up, instead of using like sand or whatever, this is how I build up my basing material. So a bit of peppercorn in there on top of the bicarbonate soda, and then poppy seeds and some coriander seeds ground up in there, and it just makes a variation, different kinds of texture. And then just a bit of super glue onto the base of the model, and then dip the model straight in there, and there you go, you've got a lovely basing texture on there. So I just have to go around and work them all off, and then save off any that's remaining, and then there you go, I've got my jar of all-purpose dirt. So now these are all done, it's time to go ahead with painting. So the colour scheme for my Tyranids is just black with red armour or red carapace. So just starting off with a dark red, just thinning it down with a little bit of water and going over the carapace areas, making sure to get all the little details down the tail there. And once I've allowed it to dry naturally, of course, using a sponge to go over again, that just gives it a nice even coat. You can use a dry brush as well, I just felt like using a sponge today. So then once I've got the dark red down, using a lighter red or a brighter red, going over again just to get a bit of highlight. And once I've done all my hormogots, I just do the exact same thing with the Neurothrope, just going over a brush first of all, and then again going over with the sponging, just to make sure I've got full coverage, and then of course making sure it's all dry naturally. And then I'm going to give it my homemade mud wash, which is just any black or brown mixed together with some water, and just going over the entire carapaces once again, just to get some shading into the recesses. So we've got the dark red, then the brighter red, and then the mud wash for the recesses. So going over them all, and then once again allowing it to dry naturally. and then going over sponging again just to get the highlights. So now we've got the different shades of red and the mud wash, and then another highlight on top, and you can do this as many times as you want, really, just building up the highlights and the recess, the shading in the recesses, just to, you know, your own personal taste, really. As you can see, it's going over, overlapping onto the black there. So once again, going around with black, making sure that I'm just tidying up so it's black with just the red on the carapace areas. It turned out this was actually a little bit more detailed than or more time consuming than I was expecting. I think I probably would just dry brush in future to get a little bit more control. For the other fleshy parts, the tongue and so on, I always use a green, so just building up with a darker green up to a lighter green. And then for the eyes, I paint those yellow. So first of all with white, and of course a little bit of overspill there again, so once again going with some black. So just dot it with the white and then go over the top of the white with yellow, and then the white just allows the yellow to stand out that little bit more. And that's the basic colour scheme done. So these are my two remaining Zoanthropes from my original squad of 3 Zoanthropes. As you can see, I put a yellow pattern on the crests of these ones. That was to indicate that they were psychers, they had the psyker powers. I'm going to remove that though. I'm not going to include that on the Neurothrope, and I'm going to remove that from these Zoanthropes as well. I think it looks much clearer just to have the plain red. I got these out though because apart from removing that part, just to show how the red is much darker at the moment on this one. So I'm just going to go over the models I've been painting and just give them a bit of a brighter red touch up around the edges. Other things to note are the claws. Probably won't be able to see on that one, it's not quite clear enough. Okay, so the claws, it's just a light brown and then a sort of a bone white highlight. So just light brown while it's still wet, stick a bit of bone white on the end there, and that's how I do the claws. And as you can see, the green for the fleshy parts are stuck on the brains, the exposed brains on the Zoanthropes. I thought that looked kind of cool, so I'm going to do that on the Neurothrope too. So that's what I'm going to go on to do now. So like he said, just going around to brighten up the red on the carapace there, and then a little bit of black on the Zoanthrope to dull down the yellow before using the sponge, just as I did do with the others, using the sponge to apply the red. Being a little bit more careful this time though, so I don't want to get too much overspill, so I don't want to have to repaint the green on the brains and so on. And yeah, I really am impressed with how even and uniform this is. As you see, all 3 of them there together. The top part of the carapace is what I've just painted with the red now, and then the rest of it is is the paint job that I did like 15 years ago on them. They really are old models, but I really am impressed with how well the sponging technique works to give a uniform, even coating of paint, especially on such a large flat area with a paintbrush. If you don't have an airbrush and using paintbrush, it can get streaky. Then just a little bit of dry brush to bring out a little bit of highlights. Again, just bringing out, bringing up the redness as much as possible. Then with the claws, just as I said in the previous little bit there, just using a light brown and then slapping on some bone white on top while it's still wet, so you're actually getting a bit of a wet blending going on there. And yeah, just play around with it, move the paint around until you're happy with it, really. This is possibly not the best way to paint a miniature. You're not going to win any awards painting like this, but when you've got an entire army to paint, you need to find fast ways to paint. And to be honest, you see a bunch of these guys on the table, nobody's paying that much attention. When you're painting an army, you just need to get the impression of what's there, You don't need every individual tooth painted, although I have painted each individual tooth. You get what I mean. With an army, you just need to get the general impression on the tabletop. Not every single individual miniature needs to be a standout piece that you put on display because you're displaying an army. So this is just a fast way of getting them painted. I'm not taking too much care on blending the paint or getting highlights done, that kind of thing. I'm just getting down the brown and then the white on top and just loosely blending it, wet blending on there, but it's a very loose, quick and dirty job. Only another 8 to go. Yeah, it can feel a little bit relentless when you're painting an entire army, but stick to it, one model at a time. You get there eventually. As I say, most of the army I painted about 15 years ago. Kind of fell out of the whole scene of 40k. Just concentrated on painting, dioramas and things like that. But I've got some friends who are kind of interested in getting back into 40k, so I got my old army out to get them painted up so I can actually play games with them again. I painted them black and red. They were supposed to be like black widow spiders. I want them to look like that kind of insect. When you look at a black widow spider, it says "I'm dangerous" because of the red streak on it. Like poisonous toads have like bright colours and so on. And that's what I want it to look like. Like a bee or wasp has the black and yellow, and then the black widow has the red stripe on. I just want it to be like, yeah, these are the danger colours. And I just generally called them redbacks after the black widow spider too. With the secondary brain on its back there, I was just trying to get a couple of different shades of green on as well, especially on that part there, because it did just look like a blob of green stuff that had been stuck on the back. And then just picking out some highlights on the fleshy parts for that skull there. And speaking of highlights, just a bit of pure white to go around on the claws there, just to pick out the very tip, so then it just makes them look a little bit extra sharp. Makes it look a little bit more menacing. Used purple for the cables. I'm not quite sure why. I think I just wanted it to I didn't want it to contrast the red and stand out too much, like the green sort of contrast against the red, so I just want that to kind of blend with it but not really clash. And then once again just make a couple of extra highlights of that secondary brain so it didn't look like just a blob of green stuff stuck on its back. And this is for the bases, so I just want to mix up a very runny brown, just a light brown to start with, and then using a pipette to just blob it on, and then using a brush then to wipe it out to spread it out a little bit further. And then that way it just gets good coverage, instead of having to reload the brush a million times. Just simply pipette it on once, and then you can spread it out with a brush. So I'm using the light brown first of all, and getting that spread out to get good coverage all over the base. And then once that's on there, I can then go over with some of that mud wash, the darker one, to put that into the recesses, and then highlight again over the top. I did have some surplus left over, so I put it into a tub to save for later, and I felt that this was actually a very similar colour to my own flesh tone, so I decided to call it Yorkshire Flesh. So there you go, I've now got my own flesh tone paint. So using some of the matte varnish there, well, it says matte, of course it always lies, it's not matte at all, it's kind of shiny. But using some of the varnish, just mixing up some blue. I thought if I put a little bit of blue over the top of the green, then hopefully it would kind of just make it look a little bit sickly. I just wanted to add to the gross factor basically. And then a bit of red, just exactly the same over the skull, and that's for the blood. So then it looked like wet blood and wet slime. So wet slime covering the brain and fleshy parts, and then fresh blood covering the skull. That's going to be an offering to the Tyranid hive mind, I guess. Anyway, the model's nearly finished now, so thanks for hanging around, and you know the drill. Click like and subscribe. It really does help the algorithm to find like-minded people. And I'm not on any social media, so I love to chat and hear from you in the comments section. And do something creative just for the fun of it, even if it goes wrong, especially when it goes wrong, because that's how you learn. It's literally how science works. You can only do the best that you can do, and that's good enough. It's not flawed or defective, it what makes it unique, just like you. Remember, you're perfect just as you are, and people love you. Look after each other, and look after your pets, because they love you too. Here's the gallery. Come here. Come here.